Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to do something truly special. We're uncovering the deep spiritual meanings behind classic Arabic narratives. And this is designed specifically to help non-native students master both the language and the profound lessons of the heart. Because, learning a language is fascinating, but learning the spiritual weight behind its vocabulary, that completely changes how you see the world.
So, let's start off with a bit of a mystery. How exactly do a blind man's sheep, a morning prayer, and a trailing cloak hold the secrets to a healthy spiritual heart? Well, today we're going to tie these three seemingly unrelated historical stories together. We're bridging that gap between literal linguistic translation and actual spiritual transformation. Here's our quick roadmap for today. First up, shukr, the gratitude test. Second, dhikr, words with infinite weight. Third, kibr, the fall of arrogance. And finally, cultivating a spiritual heart. All right, let's jump right into section 1, shukr, and the ultimate test of gratitude. Before we look at the historical text, let's anchor our first vocabulary word, shukr. It's a noun meaning gratitude or thankfulness. But if you're a language learner, it is absolutely crucial to understand that in classical Arabic, shukr goes way beyond just saying thank you. It is the active, lived acknowledgement of a blessing from God. Honestly, it's basically a verb disguised as a state of being. Take a look at this. This is a famous, authentic Arabic narration from the Prophet about 3 Israelites, a leper, a bald man, and a blind man. By studying these original texts, we get to see exactly how the vocabulary operates in a real narrative format. So, in this story, God decided to test these 3 men and sent an angel down to them. Let's break down this incredible timeline. The angel visits the leper, heals his skin, and grants him pregnant camels. Next, he restores the bald man's hair and grants him cows. Finally, he restores the blind man's sight and gives him a sheep. Now, their wealth multiplied so incredibly fast, it literally filled entire valleys. But here's the catch. The real test wasn't the wealth. Much later, the angel returns, but this time completely disguised as a desperate poor traveler asking for help. Notice the stark contrast in how they react. When asked for just a single animal to help the traveler out, the leper and the bald man failed miserably. They made up all these excuses, claiming they inherited the wealth and that they just had too many other obligations. They completely denied God's favor. But look at the blind man. He openly admitted his past poverty and blindness, telling the traveler, "Take what you wish and leave what you wish. God gave me back my sight." Because the first 2 failed the test, they lost everything, returning right back to their previous states. The blind man, however, practiced true shukr and secured his blessings for good. So what's the terbawi, the spiritual lesson we can extract from this? It's simple. Shukr is the ultimate protector of your blessings. It maintains them and even increases them. On the flip side, denying God's favors leads to swift, devastating loss. And on a practical level, never look down on the poor or those in need, because life is a cycle, and you could easily find yourself right back in their shoes. Pride destroys, gratitude secures. Now, that brings up a pretty fascinating question for our own spiritual development. If gratitude, shukr, secures our physical blessings like health and wealth, what secures the blessings of our time, our energy, and our minds? Which leads us perfectly into section 2, dhikr, words with infinite weight. Here is our second anchor word for today, dhikr. It translates to remembrance, but specifically in this context, it means the mindful verbal repetition of God's names or praises. Notice I said mindful. Dhikr isn't just reciting things on autopilot. It requires both utterance on the tongue and a profound internal awareness in the heart. This historical source beautifully illustrates the concept. It recounts a quiet moment between the prophet and his wife, Juwayriya. The prophet left his home right after the Fajr, or dawn prayer, while she was sitting in her prayer space engaged in dhikr. When he returned hours later at Duha, the mid-morning, she was sitting in the exact same spot. She had spent hours in continuous remembrance. Seeing her immense effort, he asked if she had been sitting there the whole time. When she said yes, he taught her something absolutely incredible. He told her that he had said 4 brief sentences just 3 times, and if those words were weighed against everything she had said that entire morning, his words would actually be heavier. The phrase he taught her is, Subhanallah wa bihamdihi adada khalqihi, wadhida nafsihi wa zinata arshihi wa midada kalimatihi. For us language learners, breaking down this translation reveals the sheer magnitude of the imagery here. It translates to glory and praise be to Allah, by the number of his creation, by the pleasure of himself, by the weight of his throne, and by the endless ink of his words. Just imagine that for a second. You aren't just praising God once. You are linguistically tying your praise to the infinite number of every created thing in the universe and the endless ink required to write the words of the divine. It's mind-blowing.
The spiritual meaning we extract here is super profound. Quality over quantity. True dhikr is about the immense weight of the meaning internalized by the heart, not just the physical exhaustion of the tongue. One deeply understood, heavy phrase spoken with actual presence, that outweighs hours of unthinking repetition. It's essentially a masterclass in maximizing your spiritual focus. Now let's look at the spiritual disease that can instantly wipe out the benefits of both the shukr and zikr we just learned about. Section 3, kibr, and the fall of arrogance. Our final vocabulary anchor is kibr. This is the deadly ailment of the ego. It translates to arrogance, pride, or vanity. It's an inflated sense of self-importance that inherently requires you to look down on everyone else. It completely blinds a person to the reality that everything they have is actually a gift. This next narration describes a terrifying warning from the prophet about a man from the past. And this guy wasn't just confident. He was absolutely consumed by his own reflection. He walked with excessive pride, constantly admiring his own carefully styled hair and his expensive, trailing garments. He really thought his clothes made him superior to everyone else on earth. Let's see how fast this builds into a disaster. The sequence of his downfall is absolute. Step 1, he intensely admires his own appearance and wealth. Step 2, this internal vanity leaks out into his physical actions, and he walks with a strut of pure superiority. Step 3, divine punishment is triggered instantly. The very earth he is proudly walking on is commanded to split open and swallow him whole. Step 4, he is trapped, sinking in distress into the earth until the day of resurrection. His physical ruin perfectly mirrored his spiritual ruin. What you should really take away from this is a very fine but critical line. God loves beauty. Taking care of your appearance, wearing nice clothes, being presentable, all of that is wonderful. But allowing that beauty to inflate your ego into kibr, that is spiritually fatal. God despises vanity. Kibr invites sudden ruin, because true lasting beauty is defined by your internal humility, not your outward garments. All right, now that we've broken down these 3 core concepts and their source narratives, let's bring it all together for Section 4, Cultivating a Spiritual Heart. By studying these classical stories, we learn that mastering the Arabic language isn't just about nailing the syntax or memorizing a dictionary. It's about absorbing the framework for a healthy life. Look at this formula we've uncovered. You protect your wealth and your physical health by maintaining shukr, just like the blind man. You maximize your fleeting time and mental focus by practicing high-quality zikr, just as the Prophet taught. And you completely guard your soul by destroying kibr before it destroys you. I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on. Knowing the English translation of these profound Arabic words is really only the first step. The real test is the application. So which disease of the heart, whether it's ingratitude, spiritual forgetfulness, or subtle pride, will you begin curing today using the vocabulary you just learned? Think about it and let that guide your learning this week. Thanks so much for exploring with me, and keep that curiosity alive.